Hi guys. So this is a small initiative that we have taken to help out everyone in ophthalmology aspect, especially for pre-final years in the current lockdown situation. So we'll deal with the different nuances that go into preparation for an ophthalmology practical university examination, and also learn a little bit of clinical ophthalmology along the way. So first we will deal with how what is going to be our university pattern. Our university pattern is going to contain long case into 1 plus the viva for the long case. The long case is going to be cataract. It is going to be cataract for everyone. The cataract may be combined with the pseudophakia, and rarely corneal ulcer may also be kept. Corneal ulcer also. Then we have short cases into 2 plus viva for the short cases. Short cases, we have a number of short cases, like we have pterygium, subconjunctival hemorrhage, corneal opacity, chronic dacrocystitis, chalazion. So these are the very common short cases which are normally kept for you in the examination. Plus we have 5 OSCE charts, and this is going to be your morning pattern. Okay, then after lunch you are going to have 4 stations in the afternoon, and those 4 stations, the first station is going to be ocular pharmacology. The second station is going to be community ophthalmology. Please know, community ophthalmology is very important for both your theory as well as your practical, and even you can cover an entire essay question or a short note if you read this in SPM also. Third one, you are going to have systemic ophthalmology. This is basically the rest of your ophthalm with special emphasis on systemic effects. And the fourth one is going to be refraction. So the fourth is going to be refraction. So these are the 4 stations that are going to be there for your afternoon session. So how are we going to go about our discussion of practical ophthalmology? First, we are going to discuss about history taking. History taking will first discuss about the symptomatology, the different symptoms with which any patient is going to come to the ophthalmology OPD. Then we'll go on to clinical examination of the eye. Then we'll go on to investigations, and then we'll go on to basic management. This is our general discussion of clinical examination of the patient. After which we will go into individual cases. Okay, we will deal with cataract, corneal ulcer, and so forth. We'll deal with each and every case. Okay, so first we are going to see symptomatology. Okay, we are going to see about symptomatology. Any patient who is going to come to the ophthalmology OPD can be divided into having symptoms which are related to vision. Then those symptoms which are not related to vision. And those symptoms which are related to the adnexa of the eye. What are the adnexa of the eye? Eyebrows, eyelashes, lacrimal gland, lacrimal system, eyelids, etc. These are going to be the adnexa of the eye. So today in this video we are going to deal only with those symptoms which are going to be related to the vision. Okay, so what are different symptoms which are going to be related to vision of the eye? The first one is going to be defective vision. Defective vision can be of 2 types. It can be blurring of vision, or it can also be diminution of vision. The second one is going to be loss of vision. The loss of vision can be transient, or it can also be total loss of vision. Third one is flashes of light. Flashes of light, also called as photophobia. Photopsia, it is also called photopsia. Then we have floaters. Okay, then we have diplopia. Then we have colored halos. Then we have glare. Then we have photophobia. Then we have day blindness. Then we have night blindness. Then we have distorted vision. Then we have diminution of near vision alone. Diminution of near vision. So these are the many symptoms. These are the 12 symptoms which are going to be related primarily to vision. Okay, these are the 12 symptoms which are primarily related to vision. Okay, so we are going to deal with each of these symptoms in detail. Okay. The first symptom we are going to deal with is blurring of vision. So what do you mean by blurring of vision? Blurring of vision simply means you are not able to see the image very distinctly. That is, there is going to be a reduce in the quality. There is going to be a reduction in the quality of the image perceived by the eye. Okay. There are many conditions which are going to be resulting in blurring of vision. It is basically hazy or foggy vision. So what are the conditions in early cataract? In early cataract, what happens is there is not complete opacity. This is going to be formed in the lens. Here and there are certain water collections in the lens which are going to distort the refraction of the light rays and which is subsequently going to cause the distortion of vision. Second one is minimal astigmatism. Minimal astigmatism. In minimal astigmatism, what happens is the axis of the image formed is so slightly shifted that the position, overall position of the image seems to be the same, but the edges of the image are going to be overlapping or superimposed on each other, which is going to cause a slight blurring of the image along, but the position seems to be the same. The third one is going to be nebular corneal opacity. Here, minimal number of light rays are going to be obstructed from entering into the eye, and hence there is going to be only faint blurring of vision. There is going to be no loss of vision. The next major symptom is going to be diminution of vision. Diminution of vision can be defined as a reduction in the quantity of vision. That is, there is going to be a reduction in the visual field of the person. Is going to be reduction in the visual field of the person. You have to remember that the visual field of the person can be measured using the Snellen's chart. Okay, we'll discuss about Snellen's chart when we come to investigations. But as of now, remember the field of vision can be measured using Snellen's chart. So when you call diminution of vision? Diminution of vision is that in which the patient feels that his field of contraction, there's a contraction in the field of vision. Okay. There are different categories of diminution of vision. So it can be painful, or it can be a painless diminution of vision. It can be a sudden or a gradual diminution of vision. So based on this, based on these four, you can have four different combinations of various types of diminution of vision. So we'll see about each of these combinations. The first combination is going to be painless, but it is going to be gradual diminution of vision. Painless, but it's going to be gradual diminution of vision. So one more thing I need to tell you guys, to avoid missing out conditions, important conditions when answering the Viva questions, or to make sure that you completely get all the causes into your head, what many of us, or what is it's advocated to follow is, you should always follow the normal anatomy of the eye from anterior to posterior. That is, you have to start from eyelids, eyelashes, eyebrow, conjunctiva, cornea, sclera, anterior chamber, iris, pupil, then lens, vitreous, posterior chamber, retina, optic nerve. So this is the way in which you have to list out all the conditions which are going to be affecting any symptom, which is going to cause any symptom or any disturbance to vision. Okay, so we'll go in a similar manner here. The first we'll deal with conjunctiva. Conjunctiva, what is going to happen here is going to have progressive pterygium. So what happens in progressive pterygium? What is pterygium? So pterygium is a wing-like expansion of the subconjunctival tissue, which may or may not encroach upon the pupillary area of the cornea, which may, if it encroaches, causes distortion of vision. So this is conjunctiva. There is going to be progressive pterygium encroaching on the pupillary region. Then you can have cornea. Cornea, gradual conditions, you can have corneal dystrophies and degenerations. In the lens, of course, you can have cataract. In the lens, you can have cataract. Okay, cataract is the most important for us. And in the retina, you can have macular degeneration and dystrophies. You can also have diabetic retinopathy. Diabetic retinopathy is the most important in our country. Diabetic retinopathy, chorioretinal degenerations are also going to be seen. And then you can have primary open angle glaucoma, and you can also have refractive errors. You can have primary open angle glaucoma, and you also have refractive errors. Next time I'll write it in order. So painless gradual loss of vision. You can have conjunctiva, that is going to have progressive pterygium encroaching upon the pupillary area. Cornea is going to be involved in the dystrophies and degenerations of the cornea. Lens, most important condition, cataract. Retina, it is going to be involving any macular degenerations, diabetic retinopathy, choroidoretinal degenerations, primary open angle glaucoma, refractive errors. Okay, these refractive errors is also very, very important. Apart from this, you also have some optic nerve conditions. What are the optic nerve conditions? You have hereditary, drug-induced and toxic amblyopia. You have hereditary, then you have drug-induced, then you have toxic amblyopia. Okay, so these are going to be the different conditions. What do you mean by amblyopia? Amblyopia is that condition of the eye where there is going to be a diminution of vision, where the ophthalmologist is not able to identify any other pathology in the eye. So these are the various causes of diminution, painless gradual diminution of vision. Next, we are going to have gradual painful diminution of vision. Gradual and painful diminution of vision is going to be seen in corneal ulcer and chronic iridocyclitis. Why corneal ulcer is going to be gradual and painful? Because the cornea is going to have sensitive nerve endings which are going to be stimulated, which is going to cause pain. And chronic iridocyclitis. What is iridocyclitis? Iris, cyclitis, ciliary body. Inflammation of the iris in the ciliary body is called iridocyclitis. In chronic conditions, is going to be gradual and is going to be painful because it is going to cause spasmodic contractions also. Okay. Next, we will deal with a small condition. There is a sudden painful. Before we go to sudden painless, we will deal with sudden painful conditions. Sudden painful conditions, you can have mechanical or you can have chemical trauma. Okay, mechanical or chemical trauma. You can have acute iridocyclitis. You can have acute angle closure glaucoma. You can have endophthalmitis, and also you can have giant cell arthritis. So important thing about giant cell arthritis, you have read about in pathology, which is the artery which is preferred for palpation or confirmation of giant cell arthritis, beaded appearance, superficial temporal artery is going to be preferred. Okay. Next, sudden painless. Sudden painless diminution of vision. It can be divided into vascular occlusions and other conditions. We will deal with the other conditions first. You can have optic neuritis, non non-arteritic. Anterior, pay attention to every word. Non-arteritic. Anterior ischemic optic neuropathy. Okay, this is called NAION. Okay, then you can have central serous retinopathy. You can have vitreous hemorrhage. You can have vitreous hemorrhage, and you can have RD. What is RD? Retinal detachment. Okay, that is, there's going to be separation of the neurosensory retina from the pigment layer retina, so that is called retinal detachment. So this is the main cause. This is some of the causes of sudden painless loss of vision. So what I note this down: optic neuritis, non-arteritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy, central serous retinopathy, vitreous hemorrhage, retinal detachment. Now apart from this, you're also going to have some vascular causes. Vascular occlusions for sudden painless. Vascular occlusions, you have central retinal artery occlusion, branch retinal artery occlusion, cilio-retinal artery occlusion. So these are the three artery occlusion: central retinal artery occlusion, branch retinal artery occlusion, cilio-retinal artery occlusion. Then you can have central retinal vein occlusion, and you can also have branch retinal vein occlusion. So these are the sudden painless causes of vision. I'll repeat it again. You have vascular occlusions, which is CRAO, central retinal artery occlusion; BRAO, that is branch retinal artery occlusion; cilio-retinal artery occlusion; CRVO, central retinal vein occlusion; BRVO, branch retinal vein occlusion. Okay, what important point to note here is sometimes central retinal artery may be present, but it will not be occluded in the presence of central retinal artery occlusion. In that cases, there will be sparing of the macula when there is going to be ischemia of the rest of the retina. This is very important point to note. And other causes we discussed about optic neuritis, non-arteritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy. Then we discuss about vitreous hemorrhage, then retinal detachment, then central serous retinopathy. Okay. So with this we come to an end to diminution of vision. So how will you ask the patient? Okay, this is all fine. This is theory that you know. How will you ask the patient for symptoms of diminution of vision or blurring of vision? Okay, since this is from MMC, so I'm going to talk in Tamil. Ayya, illa ungalukku vandu mangala therida. That is, are you not able to make out the objects clearly? Ungalukku mangala therida illa paarva koraiva therida. That is, are you visualizing less than usual? Koraiva therida, less than usual, or mangala therida, that is blurring of vision. And based on the response, you have to go about the aggravating relieving factors. When did it start? How long is that? When is it coming? Is it for the full day, or is it during a particular duration of the day alone, or is it during the night, or is it related to light intensity or something like that? You have to correlate. Then coming to the next symptom, next is going to be loss of vision. So till now, what have we seen? Till now, we have seen about blurring of vision, and then we have seen about diminution of vision. Now we are going to see about loss of vision. So what is loss of vision? Inability. This is, pay attention, inability to perceive light. Inability to perceive light, that is perception of light negative. We learn about all these signs when we discuss about Snellen's chart. But inability to perceive light, PL negative, is called loss of vision. One very important point to note in loss of vision is you will get loss of vision only and only if there is going to be any pathology involving the retina or the optic nerve. Only you will get loss of vision. If you have any other pathology in isolated disease involving any other part of the eye, but the retina and the optic nerve are going to remain normal, you are not going to have loss of vision. If there is any other disease of any other part of the eye, but the retina and the optic nerve are also going to be involved, then you have high chances of getting loss of vision. But for loss of vision, a prerequisite is the retina and optic nerve must be involved. Okay. Next is going to be transient loss of vision. So what we saw now is the chance of total loss of vision. So now we are going to see about transient loss of vision. What is the other name for transient loss of vision? Yes, it is called as amaurosis fugax. Okay, it's called amaurosis fugax. So how do you define it? It is defined as sudden temporary loss of vision. Sudden temporary loss of vision is called or transient loss of vision, which is going to last for few seconds to 30 minutes, but it always recovers. It always recovers. This is called transient loss of vision or amaurosis fugax. Okay, so what are the different conditions which are going to result in transient loss of vision? Okay, so you are going to have migraine headache. You are going to have migraine headache, transient ischemic attacks of the visual cortex. You must have read this also in CNS of medicine. Transient ischemic attacks of the visual cortex. Papilledema. Papilledema. They can be a prodromal symptom. Prodromal symptom for the vascular occlusion conditions that we saw earlier. There can be a hypoperfusion of the retinal arteries can also be there. Hypoperfusion of the retinal artery is seen in cardiac failure, it is seen in anemia, and also it is seen in hypotension. Hypoperfusion of the retinal artery seen in cardiac failure, hypotension, and also in anemia. Carotid artery disease, and also in atherosclerosis. So, atherosclerosis, carotid artery disease, migraine headache, transient ischemic attack of the visual cortex, papilledema, prodromal symptoms related to the vascular conditions that we saw earlier, that is CREO and all, and also arteritic ischemic optic neuropathy. Arteritic ischemic optic neuropathy. So these are the different causes for transient loss of vision. Okay. So how will you ask for transient loss of vision to the patient? அப்பப்போ உங்களுக்கு பார்வை வந்து குறைஞ்சு போதா, இல்லை திடீர்னு உங்களுக்கு மங்களா தெரிஞ்சு திடீர்னு நல்லாதா, இல்லை உங்களுக்கு அப்படியே கருப்பாயிட்டு திடீர்னு பார்வை திரும்பி வருதா? This is how we should ask for transient loss of vision. So these are the symptoms pertaining to accurate perception of the image. So next we will go on to mechanical effects. What environmental or other factors which are going to affect the image formation which are related to vision. The next one is going to be floaters. Next one is going to be floaters. So what are floaters? Floaters are going to be black spots. Black spots are going to be in front of the eye. Okay, which are going to be in front of the eye, which are going to move with the movement of the eyes. So black spots, floaters are black spots which are going to be in front of the eye, which is going to move with the movement of the eyes. Basically what is going to happen here is, this is the long axis of the eye. You are going to have something here, okay, in the vitreous chamber you can have something. So all the parallel rays of light, not here, we will draw it here. So all the parallel rays of light are going to come and it's going to converge on the here. This will go hit that point, but this is going to be blocked by that something in the vitreous chamber is going to block the passage of those light rays. So that is going to be perceived as a black spot on the retina. That is how floaters are going to come into play. So what are the different causes of floaters? The different first cause is posterior vitreous detachment. Posterior vitreous detachment. Next here, vitreous hemorrhage. And the third one, you are going to have vitreous opacities. Various vitreous opacities. It can be muscae volitans. Listen carefully, can be muscae volitans. It can be asteroid hyalosis, syncysis scintillans, inflammation of the posterior segment of the vitreous. Vitreous opacity is one of the different causes. Muscae volitans, asteroid hyalosis, syncytial scintillans, and inflammation of the posterior segment of the vitreous. Okay, so these are about floaters. So how will you ask the history for floaters? உங்களுக்கு ஏதாச்சும் பார்க்க மட்டும் உங்கள் கண்ணுக்கு முன்னாடி கருப்பு கருப்பாக மிதக்கிற மாதிரி இல்லை திடீர்னு போகிற மாதிரி இருக்கா? So this is how you are going to ask for floaters, and you are going to ask when all of these conditions going to be seen. Is it going to be always, or is it going to be associated with certain timings alone? Okay. Next, we are going to deal with another important symptom. This is a symptom that is rather close to my heart because I also experience this sometimes. It's called flashes of light. Flashes of light, also called as photopsia. Okay, so what is going to happen here is there is going to be a sensation of flickering lights. The important word here is flickering. There is a sensation of flickering lights due to traction on the vitreoretinal attachments. So what happens is, this is the vitreous, this is the retina, these are going to be attachments from the vitreous to the retina. Just imagine, and there is going to be forceful traction in one direction. What happens is, this is going to be a neurosensory layer here, which is going to get stimulated, which is going to transmit impulses to the optic nerve. Okay, this is a highly magnified image I'm showing here. This is going to be traction of the vitreal retinal attachment, which is going to cause stimulation of the nerve endings on the neurosensory retina, which is going to cause transmission of impulses, which is going to be perceived by the visual cortex as flashes of light or intermittent flashes of light. Okay. So, what are the different causes? What are the different causes of this? The first one is going to be posterior vitreous detachment. First one is posterior vitreous detachment. Second one is retinal tap. Third one is prodromal symptom of retinal detachment. It's a prodromal symptom of retinal detachment. And fourth one is papilledema. Okay, these are the different causes of flashes of light. I also experience this sometimes, especially when waking up in the morning or after being in the sun for a long time. I often get flashes of light, and I asked my mother, and she said it's perfectly normal, and she scolded me for these flashes. Okay, but anyway, you have to get this checked with the ophthalmologist, especially if there is going to be flashes of light with floaters in a patient. It is very, very important to have an indirect ophthalmoscopic examination. Okay. Next two symptoms are very, very important because these are often confused by the patient. So before we go there, we forgot to discuss something. How are we going to ask flashes of light to the patient? நீங்கள் நடக்கும் போறப்போ இல்லை சும்மா ஏதாச்சும் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கும் போறப்போ இல்லை எப்பயாச்சும் தூங்கி இருந்திருக்கும் போறப்போ எப்பயாச்சும் வந்து திடீர்னு பளிச்சுன்னு வெளிச்சம் வர மாதிரி இருக்கா? இல்லை திடீர்னு எல்லாமே வெள்ளையாக இருந்து திடீர்னு எல்லாமே வெளியாயிட்டு ஒயிட் ஆகிட்டு திடீர்னு நார்மல் ஆகிட்டா? That is, are you having sudden whiteness and then normal vision is going to be coming back soon? That is characteristic of flashes of light or photopsia. The next condition is going to be glare. What is glare? Glare is very different from photophobia, which is going to be the next condition. We will compare and contrast glare and photophobia. Okay, so glare and photophobia. What is glare? Glare is difficulty to see in bright light. There is going to be difficulty in seeing bright light, and glare can usually be tested in a normal person by looking at the sun or looking at headlights of car. You can especially experience in the sun, noon time sun, you just look at the sun, you get blinded. That is glare. Headlights, imagine you're going on the ECR in the evening time, you're driving, you look at the opposite side of the lane, 100 cars will rush at you from the opposite side, you'll get blinded. That's why never look at the opposite side when driving in crowded roads. Okay, this I am telling from experience. So headlights, and SUNS is the normal ways of testing whether a person is going to have glare or not. If you have glare in this, it means you are a normal person. Okay. If you have glare in bright light other than these two conditions, only you can be classified as having that symptom. So what are the symptomatologies of having glare? Causes of having glare. Sorry, you can have corneal opacity, and you can have lenticular opacity. So glare is going to be seen in corneal opacity and in lenticular opacity. Okay. And remember, the way to test glare is by SUNS and head flashes. Okay. Next, we are going to have photophobia. Okay. What is photophobia? Photophobia is going to be difficulty to see, or sometimes even open the eyes in normal light. Normal intensity light, and when the difficulty in opening or seeing rays. This is why this is due to stimulation of the nerve endings. This is going to be stimulation of the sensory nerve endings of the cornea. This is going to be due to the stimulation of the sensory nerve endings of the cornea. Difficulty to see or open the eyes in normal light, stimulation of sensory nerve endings of the cornea. So what are the different conditions in which you are going to see photophobia? Photophobia can be seen in corneal diseases. Most of the corneal diseases are going to exhibit photophobia. You can have corneal epithelial defects, corneal ulcer, keratitis, corneal edema. Then you can also have photophobia in iridocyclitis. So corneal diseases such as corneal epithelial defects, corneal ulcers, keratitis, corneal edema, and also in iridocyclitis you can have photophobia. Okay. We'll go to the next symptom. How are you going to ask photophobia and glare to the patient? Glare, we just discussed, photophobia is நீங்கள் நடக்கும்போது சும்மா ஏதாச்சும் பார்த்தா உங்களுக்கு கண்ணு வலிக்குமா, கண்ணு ஒழுங்காக திறந்து நடக்க முடியுதா, இல்லை கண்ணு ஒழுங்காக திறந்து படிக்க முடியுதா சூரிய வெளிச்சத்தில், that is in sunlight are you able to read properly, that is photophobia. Okay. Next symptom is distorted vision. Distorted vision is going to be any alteration in the size or the shape of the original object. Okay, alteration in the size and shape of the object. This is going to be called as distorted vision. Distorted vision can be many types. Micropsia. Micropsia means smaller. All the dimensions are going to be smaller. Macropsia. Macropsia, all the dimensions are going to be larger. And metamorphosia. Metamorphosia is going to be having alteration in the shape of the object is called metamorphosia. Distorted vision is going to be mostly seen in macular conditions. In diseases of the macula only, you are going to have distorted vision in macular degeneration, macular edema. In macular degeneration and macular edema, you can going to have distorted vision. So how are you going to ask the patient for distorted vision? நீங்கள் பார்க்குற பொருள் நீங்கள் பார்க்குற அளவுக்கு தான் இருக்கா, இல்லை அதை விட வேறு சைஸ் இல்லை ஷேப்பில் இருக்கா, இல்லை நீங்கள் ஒழுங்காக ஏதாச்சும் எடுக்க முடியுமா கையில், இல்லை ஏதாச்சும் அது எடுக்க போகிறப்போ உங்கள் கை தழுவி விழுதா, ஏன்னா அது வேறு மாதிரி இருக்கிற மாதிரி, நீங்கள் வேறு மாதிரி இது பார்க்குற மாதிரி. So you should ask like that, distorted vision. Remember, for any symptom that you are going to ask, if the patient gives a positive history, you have to ask onset, duration, aggravating, relieving, associated factors. This is this is the dictum for any symptom that the patient is going to come up with. Okay. Next is a very important symptom, short note, clinical case, clinical scenario, and a common condition that you are going to be seeing anywhere in the society. This is called diplopia. What is diplopia? Perception of double image of the object is called diplopia. There is another term called as polyopia. What is polyopia? More than two images. It's called polyopia. So the diplopia can be divided into biocular diplopia, binocular diplopia, or uniocular. Binocular diplopia and uniocular diplopia. So in binocular diplopia, what is the requisite? The diplopia is going to be present only when both the eyes are going to be open. That you remember, listen. Only when both the eyes are going to be open, you are going to have binocular diplopia, and binocular diplopia is going to be absent, or it is going to disappear when you are going to close one eye. Whereas uniocular diplopia, even if you close one eye, the diplopia persists. It is called uniocular diplopia. Okay, binocular diplopia, remember, it can also be always be related to three major structures: nerve and neuromuscular junction, muscle. So any condition is going to be affecting the nerve, neuromuscular junction, and muscle is going to be causing binocular diplopia. Okay, so from this you can have paresis or paralysis of the nerves, which are going to be supplying the extraocular muscles. You can have myasthenia gravis, paresis or paralysis of the nerves which are going to be supplying the extraocular muscles, myasthenia gravis. You can have fracture of the orbit. By fracture of the orbit, you are going to have entrapment of the extraocular muscles. Fracture of the orbit, and the muscle is going to be entrapped in the fractured segment of the orbit. Okay, the muscle is going to be entrapped here, and then you are going to have thyroid ophthalmopathy. Thyroid ophthalmopathy. So binocular, you can classify the causes into nerve, neuromuscular junction, and muscle. Paresis of the nerve supplying the extraocular muscles. What are the nerves supplying extraocular muscles? Oculomotor, abducens, trochlear nerves. Okay, myasthenia gravis, and one more you find out, fracture of the orbit. Okay, where you will have entrapment of the extraocular muscles, thyroid ophthalmopathy. Okay. In uniocular diplopia, even after the eye is going to be, even if one eye is going to be closed, the diplopia is going to persist. This is going to be mostly due to refractive errors of the cornea, of the lens, and conditions of the pupil. Refractive errors of the cornea, lens, and pupil are going to cause uniocular diplopia. In cornea, you are going to have a condition called as keratoconus, where there is going to be a conical rearrangement of the structure of the cornea. In keratoconus, what happens is there is going to be varying length of refraction of the light due to the alteration in the shape of the cornea. Hence, there is going to be varying amounts of refraction which is going to occur to different parts of the eye, and hence different images, different meeting points of the rays can be found. In pupil, you can have double pupil. In double pupil, you are going to have 2 ports of entry of the light rays, hence two different sides of images are going to be formed on the retina. In lens, you can have, I'll write it here. In lens, you can have subluxated lens. In subluxated lens, where are you going to have subluxated lens? Temporal subluxation is seen in Marfan's. Okay, so subluxated lens, what is going to happen is the axis of the lens is going to be deviated. So apart from the normal axis of the eye, there is going to be another axis of refraction that is going to pass through the lens. So there is going to be more than one image which is going to be perceived. Same principle is going to be followed in displaced lens. Displaced lenses, displaced intraocular lens. Displaced intraocular lens which are going to be placed after cataract surgery, they can be displaced from their sulcus or their place of positioning. And then you can also be having an incipient cataract. So in incipient cataract, you are going to have a lot of water pockets that are going to be present in the lens, which is going to cause multiple internal refractions of the light rays, which is again going to cause multiple image formation. So this is about diplopia. Diplopia is going to be perception of more than one image of the object. Polyopia is more than two images of the object. It can be binocular or uniocular diplopia. Binocular diplopia is going to be present only when both the eyes are going to be open, and it's going to disappear when one eye is going to be closed. Uniocular diplopia is going to be present even if one eye is going to be closed. Binocular diplopia causes nerve, NMJ junction, and muscles. Uniocular diplopia can be refractive errors of the cornea, lens, or pupil. Okay, so this is how you are going to classify diplopia. Diplopia is an important short notes. Okay, the next symptom is also going to be a very, very important symptom. How are you going to ask? Before that, how are we going to ask diplopia to the patient? நீங்கள் வந்து பார்க்குறதுக்கு நீங்கள் பார்க்குற ஏதாச்சும் பொருள் வந்து ரெண்டாக தெரியுதா, இல்லை நிறைய பொருள் இருக்கிற மாதிரி தெரியுதா? Okay, remember, you should ask whether the patient is going to perceive 2 or more images. You should never show your 2 fingers or 1 finger. You should never ask the patient how many fingers you are able to see. That is classified as examination. You should ask the patient how many objects you are able to see. Again, you should ask what is the onset, what is the duration, whether it's gradual or progressive, and any aggravating factors or relieving factors are going to be there, and whether there is any associated symptoms of diplopia. Next, we are going to have colored halos. So, how do you define colored halos? Colored rings around lights. Colored rings around lights are called as colored halos. Why is colored halo going to occur? It is going to be occurring due to prismatic dispersion. This is a very, very important term. Prismatic dispersion of light because of abnormal fluid collection in the refractive media. Because of abnormal fluid collection in the refractive media. Abnormal fluid collection in the refractive media. Okay. So what are the different causes of colored halos? First one, you can have mucus collection on the cornea. Second one, you can have corneal edema. Corneal edema can be seen in bullous keratopathy. Corneal edema can be seen in bullous keratopathy. It can also be seen in acute congestive glaucoma. So what is glaucoma? I forgot to tell you guys. Basic idea. Glaucoma is going to be any visual field defects accompanied with optic nerve or optic head changes, which may or may not be accompanied by rise in intraocular pressure, is called as glaucoma. In acute congestive glaucoma, you can have corneal edema. And third one, you can have it in immature cataract. Third one, you can have it in immature cataract. So colored halos, colored rings around lights. Prismatic dispersion of the light is going to be occurring due to abnormal fluid collection in the refractive media. What are the different causes? Mucus of the cornea, mucus deposition or mucus accumulation on the corneal surface, corneal edema due to bullous keratopathy or acute congestive glaucoma, and immature cataract. So how do you differentiate? One important point to note here is how you are going to differentiate between the 3 different causes of colored halos. So that is going to be occurring due to mucus deposition, or is it going to be occurring due to some intrinsic problem of the pathology of the cornea, or is it going to be due to immature cataract? Okay. So if there is any mucus deposition, first mucus, if there is any mucus deposition, if you wash the eye, all the mucus is going to be washed off, and hence colored halos are going to disappear. That's all. Mucus is going to be present in the eye, you are going to wash the eye. If it disappears, then color also going to disappear. It's going to be because of mucus deposition in the eye. It can be related to conjunctivitis or something, or non-hygiene of the eye. The second one is going to be differentiation between corneal edema and immature cataract. For that, you have a test called Finchham stenopic slit test. You have another name here. I want you guys to find out something Finchham stenopic slit test. Okay, you must find out who is the something, which person is that something. Okay, something Finchham stenopic slit test. What you're going to do here is you're going to take a 2 mm long slit. This is a hard cardboard box in which you're going to have 2 mm long slit, 2 mm wide, sorry, 2 mm wide slit, and you're going to pass it in front of the eye, and you're going to shine a light source. So this is the light source, and you're going to have the slit here, and this is going to be the eye. So the light source is going to pass through. So what is going to happen here is all the light rays are going to get cut off, and a single column of light rays is alone going to pass through the eye. If it is going to pass through the eye, it is going to have corneal edema. All the light rays which are going, as it passes from one end of the eye to another end of the eye, all the light rays are uniformly going to pass through a single refractive medium, which is going to be affected by corneal edema. So all the light rays are going to be refracted, or going to be, so it is going to undergo prismatic dispersion to the same extent. So when even if you are going to pass a stenopic slit, colored halos are not going to disappear. Colored halos are going to persist in full configuration. They are not going to be altered in shape also. Whereas if you are going to pass through immature cataract, what happens in immature cataract is there is going to be opacifications, water collections, irregular pockets in the lens, irregular areas of the lens. So when you are going to pass a stenopic slit, a single layer of light from one end of the lens to another, it is going to come across the irregular topography and irregular composition of the lens. Because of this, there is going to be difference. There is going to be a difference in the level of prismatic dispersion occurring in in different parts of the lens, because of which the colored halos are going to be perceived as being broken and varied in sizes and colors and shapes when the stenopic slit is going to pass from one end of the eye to another end of the eye. So this is how Fincham's stenopic slit test. You find out who is that fellow. Fincham's stenopic slit test is going to be used to differentiate between corneal edema and immature cataract. Okay, this is very important. Fincham's stenopic slit test. Okay. So coming to the, how will you ask for colored halos? You cannot simply ask the patient, உங்களுக்கு வந்து ஒரு பல்பை சுற்றி உங்களுக்கு கலர் கலராக தெரியுதா, இல்லை ஒரு லைட்டை சுற்றி கலர் கலராக தெரியுதா. So number one, colored halos can only be observed, mostly colored halos can be observed only around round lighted objects, round light sources like the bulb that we are normally using. Second, any patient who wants to get admitted to the hospital will definitely say I have seen colored halos, and any patient who doesn't want to get admitted to the hospital will definitely say I am not seeing any colored halos. So how do you identify correctly who is seeing colored halos, who is not seeing colored halos? You start in a progressive manner. உங்களுக்கு அந்த லைட் ஒழுங்காக தெரியுதா, அதை சுற்றி ஏதாச்சும் தெரியுதா, ஒளி வட்டமாக தெரியுதா, அது ஒளி எப்படி இருக்குது, ரவுண்டாக இருக்கா இல்லை வேறு ஏதாவது ஷேப்பில் இருக்கா, எப்பவுமே தெரியுதா, அது ஒளி வந்து ஒரே கலரில் இருக்கா இல்லை நிறைய மல்டி கலரில் இருக்கா. So this is how you should ask questions, whether the patient is able to observe any halo around the source of light, whether the source of light halo is going to be circular or any other shape, it is going to be of a uniform color, it is going to be broken up into multiple colors. Okay, so this is how you should ask the patient about colored halos. Okay, next coming to day blindness. The next symptom is going to be day blindness, or it is also called hemerolopia. Day blindness or hemerolopia. What is day blindness? Inability to or diminution of vision in daylight is called day blindness or hemerolopia. What are the different causes of day blindness? Number one, it can be due to cones. Any condition affecting the cones, reduction the quantity of cones in the secondary congenital hereditary, or can be a traumatic or even degeneration of the cone cells. And it can also be due to central opacities of the lens or the cornea. So this is a very beautiful mechanism by which central opacities of the lens or cornea are going to cause day blindness. Normally in day blindness is going to be bright light shining upon the eye. This is the iris, this is the pupil, this is the iris, this is the iris, this is the pupil. Next video I'll get some color points. So iris and pupil. So when the bright light is going to shine, imagine this is the pupil, this is the pupil. When bright light is going to shine, the pupil is going to constrict. The pupil is going to constrict, and a smaller pupil is going to be formed. So a smaller size pupil is going to be formed. So when a smaller size pupil is going to be formed, the amount of light rays that are going to go into the eye is going to be restricted along the central axis of the eye. But central opacity of the lens and cornea, there is an opacity present along the central axis of the eye, which means that whatever light is going to be passing along the central axis of the eye cannot go and hit the retina. Why? The central opacity is going to obstruct the passage of light along the central axis. So since there is only that much amount of light is going to pass through the eye, there is going to be diminution of vision. That is in central opacity of the lens and cornea. Do you understand? During daytime, there is going to be constriction of the pupil, because of which there is going to be central opacity, due to which there is going to be focusing of all the light rays along the central axis of the eye. Along the central axis of the eye is going to be focusing on the light rays. But along the central axis of the eye, there is going to be a corneal opacity, and there is going to be also lenticular opacity. It is going to obstruct the passage of light through the eye, which is going to be causing the day blindness or hemerolopia. Okay, this is a very important mechanism, central opacities of the lens and the cornea. Okay, coming to the next symptom, night blindness. Night blindness are also called as nyctalopia. Okay, night blindness is also called as nyctalopia, diminution of vision in dim light or in night. Dim light, there is a key word here, dim light or at night there is going to be diminution of vision. One important thing to note here is, as soon as we have been learning about night blindness since our school days, especially in first year vitamin A deficiency. Please do not say only vitamin A deficiency. Every professor knows that you are going to see vitamin A deficiency. So they look for other conditions. Also, what are the other causes? It can be due to rods, congenital deficiency in the quantity of the rods, or it can also be due to retinitis pigmentosa, vitamin A deficiency, congenital stationary night blindness, Augusti's disease, fundus albipunctatus, pathological myopia, and choroidal dystrophies like gyrate atrophy and choroideremia. So night blindness can be caused by retinitis pigmentosa, vitamin A deficiency, congenital stationary night blindness, Augusti's disease, fundus albipunctatus, pathological myopia, choroidal dystrophies like gyrate atrophy and choroideremia. So one point to note here, most of these terms will be like Greek and Latin for you. Entire ophthalmology is like that only. When you're reading for the first time, when you open your Purana or Parsons and you read for the first time, it will be like Greek and Latin. So many new terms and new terminologies and strange words. One important thing to note here is that all these terms, okay, all these terms are having certain meaning behind the anatomical location of the pathology or based on some syndromic or any symptomatic association. They are going to have meaning. Okay, so understand those terms and then you correlate with the symptom which is going to be discussed. Okay, coming to the last symptom that we are going to discuss for the day. Excuse me, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So the last symptom for the day is diminution of vision of near objects. Diminution of vision of near objects alone. The patient is not able to see near objects, but the distant vision is normal. Near vision is abnormal. The near vision is abnormal, distant vision is normal. So what are the different causes of this? We are going to see in presbyopia. Remember, both presbyopia, presbyacusis and ENT, both are very, very important short notes for you. Both are very common in our society. So presbyopia, we are going to have loss of accommodation. What are the 3 C's of accommodation? Constriction, contraction and convergence. Okay, so loss of accommodation. Then you have cycloplegia, where you're going to have spasm or paralysis of ciliary muscles, and ophthalmoplegia. Ophthalmoplegia can be both internal, external or total ophthalmoplegia. This is also going to cause paralysis of accommodation, diminution of vision of near objects. So how are you going to ask for night blindness in the patient? உங்களுக்கு வந்து ஏதாச்சும் ஒரு இருட்டு ரூமில் போட்டு இல்லை ஏதாச்சும் ஒரு கம்மியாக ஒரு லைட் வெளிச்சத்தில் உங்களால் படிக்க முடியுமா, இல்லை உங்களால் தெளிவாக பார்க்க முடியுதா, இல்லை கண்ணு கூசுற மாதிரி இருக்கா? For diminution of vision, யாராவது கிட்ட பார்வை உங்களுக்கு சரியாக தெரியுதா, உங்களால் படிக்க முடியுதா, எழுத முடியுதா, கிட்ட இருக்கிற பொருளை எடுக்க முடியுதா, தூர இருக்கிற பொருள் உங்களுக்கு தெரியுதா? You should assess first distant vision is being normal and near vision is going to be defective. Both these conditions are very, very important. This is mostly going to be seen in elderly patients. So this comes to the end of our discussion about symptoms of vision. We have started with blurring of vision, diminution of vision, and we progressed to floaters, flashes of light, glare, photophobia, colored halos, day blindness, night blindness, and diminution of vision of near objects. I'm pretty sure I missed out a few conditions here. Diplopia, I missed out. Then distortion of vision, I missed out. Okay. Especially important symptoms here is going to be colored blindness, diplopia, and diminution of vision. These are and glare. So these are the very, very important symptoms under symptoms of vision. So another important thing I want to discuss is regarding how will you write your case sheet. Remember, the more number of positive histories you give, it gives a more amount of chance for your examiner to ask you questions. So the more amount of negative histories you give, there's less chance. Remember, the examiner can still ask you questions, but there's less chance of him asking questions from symptoms which are negative. So no matter what the patient says, the final case sheet which you're going to write in your examination is in your hands. Exam. In real life, or when you're taking history in your classes, in your practical classes of postings, try to get as many positive histories as possible so that you can discuss with your teacher or your professor and get a lot of points. Get as many positive histories in your day-to-day posting classes and all. But in your examination, strictly follow the given pro forma. Even if the patient says positive history for something, confirm it 1,000 times, then you write in the case sheet is a positive history. So generally most of these symptoms are going to be related, most of these symptoms are related to cataract as far as we are concerned. And when we discuss about cataract case in the 4-5 classes, we'll discuss about how each of these symptoms are going to relate to cataract. Otherwise, for other short cases and corneal ulcer also, many of the symptoms are going to relate. But otherwise, for short cases, many of the symptoms are not going to relate. Instead, the symptoms which are going to be not related to vision and adnexia are going to be more important for those conditions which are for short cases for us. So the books of reference which I referred for here is Khurana, then Parsons, and there's a practical book called as Dadapir. So these 3 books I have referred for your class. For our discussion class. And so the next topic will be symptoms which are not related to vision and also symptoms related to the adnexa of the eye. Okay, thank you.